And now, it's time for the Lakeside Drive F1 podcast. Here are your hosts and my supreme leaders, James Baldwin, Campy, and Freya Brolsma.
Well, hello and good morning to Lakeside Drive. In this episode, we review a race which we'll be talking about more for appendicitis, debuts, and helmet Marco off track. Welcome to the Jeddah Grand Prix review. And this morning, we'll be joined by my friends and yours with a one and only queen of the marathon, Freya. How are you?
I am very well. With an introduction like that, Campy, how can I be anything else?
Look, I'm going for the off-the-cuff professionalism as our fearless host,
Love
Mr.
it.
James Baldwin, the Eddie Maguire of motorsport podcasts around the world. How are you, mate?
I was good up until that point. Oh, no. What have you done to me? Yeah, thanks very much. Good. Yeah, go Collingwood, I guess.
Well, now, before we start on this Jeddah Grand Prix, we have some news to discuss. There's been lots going on off the paddock, probably more so than went on track last night. So let's kick it off with this Red Bull, Helmut Marko, Christian Horner, some employee. Jim, give us the breakdown, because I don't really want to talk about it, because I'll say something that I probably shouldn't say that I really want to say. I'm holding it all in. So give us a quick breakdown of what's happening.
Yeah, everything is alleged until proven otherwise. It's a very bizarre story that keeps rearing its head. And every episode that I have done so far of the Race F1 briefing has included a point about this story. That's how much it hasn't gone away. The overarching thing, as we know, is the allegations of held against Christian Horner by an employee of Red Bull. Those allegations were investigated and dismissed by Red Bull GmbH, who is the parent company of Red Bull Racing, the drinks, everything else, right? So that was that. And in Bahrain, I think in qualifying, they were like, okay, we're going to put that to bed. That's all fine. And then suddenly there was that Google Drive thing that was shared around the place. And it was sent to like 100 different people, including Stefano Domenicali, all of the team principals, a whole bunch of people, journalists rather, like people from the race. I don't know if Laminato got one, but he would be the kind of journalist to have sort of received that email. And then that stirred a whole bunch of other stuff. And then it was Jos Verstappen and Christian Horner. And then fast forward to this weekend, and it then suddenly became about Helmut Marko and Christian Horner, and Helmut Marko and Oliver Mintzlaff, who is the new head of Red Bull GmbH. And from what I understood, there was this whole conversation about an investigation into something that Helmut allegedly did. And it was leaking information, whether that was leaking information with regards to the Horner investigation or just something else, because as we've seen plenty of times, Helmut Marko will just say shit to whoever he wants. He'll say something to like German media, considering like going, oh, well, no one will be able to understand that in the English press, so it won't matter because no one can clearly translate in the rest of the world. Anyway, if something comes out about Nick de Vries or Pierre Gasly or whatever, we've seen it time and time again. So Red Bull as an organisation, but also Red Bull Racing, do get frustrated with him because he's not actually an official spokesperson. He is just a consultant to Red Bull GmbH, not Red Bull Racing, right? So there's all of these things. Anyway, he and Oliver caught up on the Saturday at Saudi Arabia and apparently put all the differences aside and moved on. But one thing that really caught my attention, Campy, was how Max Verstappen, out of all of the other stuff about his dad, about Christian, the thing that got him riled up was the threat of losing Helmut Marko from Red Bull Racing. And he very emphatically, vocally supported Helmut, basically saying, if Helmut goes, I go. And it was like, oh, okay, this is almost come out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've heard rumours of rifts between F1 ever since Dietrich Mateschitz passed in, and the power struggle going on within the organisation and the F1 team. And whilst we don't know what happened with the Horner allegations, I think this is part of that bigger story which is really playing out, which is the power struggle and who's aligned to who and the factions which is happening in Red Bull and who ultimately sits there to to take the F1 team into the future. And it's pretty clear that Max and Jos Verstappen and his dad have aligned with Helmut Marko, and they don't see Christian Horner as the most, important man in the team, which I call BS on. He is Red Bull. He started this team. He has got the funding. He's gone right the way through it. Yes, Helmut was Dietrich's man looking over it, but he is the guy that started it, a bit like a Toto Wolff with Mercedes and how they got that off the ground. So I can't see him going anywhere. But, it's a shame. It'll just come. So that's a real shame.
Can I just say, what I thought was really interesting is there was a media outlet who published the name of the member from Red Bull Racing who had launched these allegations into the press, which is just the most stupid thing to do for their privacy as much as everyone else. And the first thing was Christian engaging his...
Too.
Yeah, the first thing that Christian did was engage his lawyers. So we don't need to go anywhere near litigation. It is merely speculation and rumour and just unnecessary, but also unnecessary for that person too. Yeah, the clickbait way of some of these journalists in Formula One and podcasts, we just need to lower ourselves to that standard, I think.
All right, moving on from that, whatever it is, that wheelie bin of trash, an innuendo.
Very good.
F1 Academy, something that's very close to your heart. 2024.
Yeah.
Talk us through it. What's happening?
The main thing that I would want to say with F1 Academy, I mean, God, how good was it to see them broadcast? It was so accessible. It doesn't matter where you were in the world, there was a way of watching it. YouTube very much helped with that if you didn't have access to one of the official broadcast channels, Sky Sports or whatever it might be in your area. So just making it so accessible for everyone. That is the thing that since this has started that we have been calling for, and we have it. And it's only taken them a series to get there, like one year to get there, which I think is actually pretty impressive, but it was also the first thing that everybody said when F1 Academy became a thing. So that was just such a moment and a milestone, I think, when it comes to, just the money that is then able to be invested in this sport, because you're seeing the cars on track. And that's obviously going to be one of the biggest challenges that we've talked about with women's sport in particular, but especially when you combine the unique needs of motorsport with women's sport is people wanting to put their money behind it. And when we can see the cars on track and you've got Lewis Hamilton going out there and giving his teammate a hug afterwards and they are completely showing their support, that's when I think it is really just primed now for some really fantastic investment. And that was something that really did warm my heart, at least. And I know there's an element of this, even there's still, as much as something I love this so much, but even in my cynical brain, there's still an element of how good it looks for the cameras and everything else. I can't help but think that at the same time, I think we saw at least one driver from just about every team go to their corresponding F1 Academy team and show their support either before the race, before qualifying, after the race. We saw them get around them, which was just absolutely fantastic. I think, there was obviously a bit of drama at the end. So Dorian Pin, who is the Mercedes driver, was demoted. She got given a penalty because she crossed the checkered flag twice. So basically, once she went to do her cool down lap, she was still basically going flat out.
Pushed. Yeah.
She absolutely pushed, and they were like, what are you doing? But she didn't realise that the checkered flag had actually gone. Like, she is the real deal. Like,
Scary.
Iron James in 2021 with Le Mans, got 5 podiums with them. 2022 dominated Ferrari Challenge Europe Series. She won 9 out of the 14 races, as well as 24 Hours Spa. And then last year, WEC, she's the first woman to win the Revelation of the Year award. Formula 4, Southeast Asian, UAE Championships, finished second in Southeast Asian Series. Like, she is the real deal. I think you're going to really see her potentially dominate this series, to be entirely honest. When she got announced, I was like, oh, this is a name that's going to really cause the others to really have to push, and so I know there was a lot of chat around Bianca Bustamante at the end of last year, but I think that was more about the timing with her signing of McLaren more than anything else. I think between Abby Pulling and Dorian, this is going to be some great racing. And 2 final things on that. One, there was so many people in our Discord watching it, which was just absolutely fantastic, and people talking about the skill that was on show and just how great it was to be able to watch it. The second, though, which is a slightly more negative point, I absolutely hated that on International Women's Day, with this incredible thing that was happening, the news was dominated by these men who are engaged in this disgusting power struggle. Not only that, but then obviously with the allegations against Christian centering in on that as well. And I was like, on this day of all days throughout the year with this incredible thing happening around you, and that is what we are fucking talking about. And I just got really annoyed about that. But all of that aside, just incredible to see this come to life and really show its potential.
Yeah, fair enough too. Look, just to pick up on my annoyance of this, it's the team. Prema too busy congratulating themselves, high-fiving, taking headsets off. There's even video of it, and just leaving her to continue pushing, and saying, she's like, how many laps are left? And there's no radio chat back. And then they're like, oh, sorry. Slow the car right down. It's like, oh my goodness, really, guys, come on, let's be better at this. And yes, the FIA, or the stewards rather, handed her a 20-second penalty, which is as
brutal.
many seconds as Kevin Magnussen got, and Kevin Magnussen was bumper carring his way through the Grand Prix. It was unbelievable. And people in the comments are like, oh well, yes, that's how the penalty must be applied. Don't be ignorant. The stupid decision that was made there, it should have been a team penalty. The race had finished. All of that sort of stuff. That no one was put in danger at any point in that instance. And it is terrifying to me that in the first round of F1 Academy, she finished 7/10 ahead in the same exact equal machinery. She got 20-second penalty. That put her in 9th. There is more than 9 starters. So it is, fantastic for her, fantastic signing for Mercedes, absolutely. But the racing was fantastic. I felt for Leah Bloch too, who the Charlotte Tilbury car looks also equally disgusting on track as we thought it would too, which is such a shame for that brand.
How can you love something and hate it so much at the same time?
Yeah, that's true. But that car, and I forget who drives that, so please excuse my ignorance, but had a spin, and she decided, instead of waiting for everyone to cycle through, that she would just punt straight into Leah Bloch, who then put her completely out of the race, which was a shame. Because
Lola Lovenfoss, the French driver. She's the best name of all time.
Yes, that's true. So Lovenfoss you just started up again, which is such a shame because Leah, again, one of those things. I mean, Dorian is incredibly interesting to watch from where she's come from, but Leah's come from literally Extreme E last year, hill climb cars, driving her dad's Unicorn kind of stuff, and then, finding pace in that. Anyway, I think fantastic to talk about, honestly, and we don't talk about F3 and F2. We'll talk about F2 as a result of Ollie Bearman anyway in just a moment, I'm sure, but it was a good first start properly to F1 Academy this year. It should have happened last year, but they've got themselves sorted out, I suppose, Campy, and they're good to go.
Yeah, look, before we start on the race and the race weekend, we just got one more piece of Audi, Jim. They have decided that they're going to be buying 100% of the Sauber team for 2026 when they eventually come into the sport. What do you think this means for that partnership that has been projected to happen? Will it still be a working partnership with the staff that are still there, or is it really a signal of what Audi wants to do for their broader group, the Volkswagen group, wants to do in this sport moving forward?
Yeah, look, that's a great question, and I think in terms of what's happening here, this is Andreas Seidel all over it, because Sauber is shithouse yet again. I mean, testing was bad, Bahrain was bad, Saudi Arabia was bad, Australia will be bad. There's just no good happening with that team, regardless of the upgrades that they've brought along. Everyone else has brought better upgrades, and I think that from my mind, Andreas is going, all right, we just need to forget about the time being and totally focus on what's ahead, especially if they're going to be bringing in someone like Carlos Sainz, who is a high-quality driver, who has the opportunity to win and put on podium for Grand Prix regardless of his appendicitis, I think is interesting. But for this whole partnership, it was funny, 6 months ago, I think there was starting to be rumours about, Audi actually don't want anything to do with this anymore because changing world conditions and the fact that Sauber are doing so poorly, all that kind of other stuff. But there is some sort of, I suppose, take to see that Andreas Seidel will still be the CEO of all of it. And that will be trying to figure, Oliver Hoffman who is he's on the Audi board. He's going to take responsibility of the whole F1 program. So Audi, from what I understand, have already started. And if you go on to like motorsportjobs.com, there are Audi adverts for F1 engine production already in Germany. So they're already starting to think about that. Whether or not they're allowed to be making those engines yet, I actually don't know, but maybe they're just getting the staff in place ready for next year to be able to start press go on that. But I think it's a good thing for Sauber because they're just flailing around the place. And come 2026, obviously new regulations and all that sort of other stuff, but if Audi's not in bed already with figuring out what everything is and the wind tunnel and the simulators and all that sort of other stuff and be able to invest some money properly right away, then they're going to start 2026 way on the back foot. And I think from that point of view, for the sports point of view, but for Valtteri and Joe's point of view too, specifically, it's incredibly good. Not that we necessarily think that they're going to be driving in that team next year, but Audi buy it, maybe the whole thing for Carlos, it lines up really well for next year. Who knows? But I think it's a good thing. And because Sauber's been around forever and they haven't really done all that much. So it's time to make them a total manufacturer and push on.
And that only leaves a couple of independent teams left, like your Williams and McLarens, but they're a bit different in that aspect. I think Williams will be looking for a partnership with a big OEM manufacturer in the future. If F1 opens its books up to more teams and more manufacturers and, anyway, it'll be interesting to see what happens in that space. All right, we're getting into the race weekend this weekend. Now, I will review the national anthem because it is my favourite part of this podcast. If you remember back to last year and the Jeddah national anthem, I think there was 24 people in that marching. It was out of tune. It was terrible. It was possibly the worst national anthem I've ever seen. In a 30-second song, you think you could get this right? They did not do it last year. So this year they went the very, very safe option and they just played a recording and it was over in 30, 35 seconds, unlike some of the national anthems around the world that go on for way too long and you get those excellent memes of Sergio Perez looking very stoned and bored whilst waiting for the national anthem to be completed. This one was done, tick. I'll give it an update. Interesting anthem, but bring back the marching band. So that was good, James. We had a flyover. Talk us about that. Was it really a flyover? I
don't know. I put this down because it was in the air. So technically they were flying over the heads of people watching. Look, the drones I think are a nice touch and on the coast there, why not? I couldn't quite see properly, but either they had like powered aircraft or a bigger powered drone or whatever that sort of had like fireworky kind of thing coming out the wingtips as it circled around this sphere of countdown until... It wasn't even countdown to like the lights going out. It was a countdown to a formation lap. Anyway, and it looked fine. Lots of people were taking photos of it on the ground, so I'm sure the cameras didn't do it justice and on the ground looked good. You might as well use the drones if you've got them.
At what point does a drone become a helicopter? That's my real question, Jim. Because they're sort of the same thing, right? Technically the science and the way they produce lift is slightly different, but... Talk to me. When are they the same?
Oh, yeah. Well, hang on. Let me just play out my PhD of aerodynamics and aeronautical engineering, and I'll be able to tell you. I'm not the person to make... when it looks like, I don't know, when it's got a tail rotor to be able to counter the effect, although there's some helicopters that don't have tail rotors, so...
That's for the steering, right? Anyway.
It's to stop Discord it spinning into the ground.
Freya, take us away.
Yeah. So if someone can go and find that out for us and let us know, that'll be fantastic. My Discord comment of the week goes to JC, who said, I just changed to the kids cast so I don't have to listen to the regular bullshit. That was fantastic.
Very good.
An honourable mention also goes to Cargan Diaz, who posted a gorgeous photo of him with his daughters watching F1 Academy, and that, my friend, is what it is all about.
Didn't JC say shortly after that he's like, they've like switched back because they started talking about camels? I switched back to the main broadcast. They're talking about camels. Not interested.
Potentially had a bigger vocabulary than they did with the commentary on the weekend, though. So, yeah.
Talk about Brittany anytime you want, kids cast. Anything against Nico Rosberg, I'm here for.
All right, predictions from last week. My predictions.
Hang on a second. What's your Discord comment of the week? You just skipped me
down,
and you.
Campy. All right.
Goodness
in my defense, and I know
and you weren't watching live, were you?
Were turned off, and I tried to find the commenters that I had to read to catch up in the chats, so I didn't read them.
Where's your comment? Well, mine. How about I go through mine?
I can't do 4 a.m. Look, unless I'm up from the night before, which is very, very rare these days. So I watched the race at a nice civilised time at 5 p.m. Sunday night, our time, and I saw the highlights of qualifying, which is a shame because I saw who won. So I didn't watch the whole thing. But, yep, it was great.
James, who was the high performer for you?
You're the Rob James of this podcast today, Campy, and watching the 5-minute highlights.
At least I watched the race. Unlike Rob James, who watches a 7-minute highlight video and does a whole 2-hour podcast.
Sometimes not even that. My high performer is myself, Freya. That's the honest answer, because I had 3 or 4 people like, this is Discord comment of the week for them. So on their behalf, when Kevin was just driving with zero fucks given, I said K-Mag driving this like an online lobby, which is true because he just had zero care.
And I can attest to the fact that that was indeed a crowd nomination, as much as we might not be able to fit your head through the door at the end of this podcast with that kind of support from our Discord, James. It was authentic. They were genuinely behind it. In fact, JC actually said, if you can't give it to yourself, give it to me, and then reposted the same comment to make sure that it happened.
That's right.
Yeah, very well done. Very well done.
Oh, very good. All right, predictions. Now, mine actually wasn't too bad when you look at it. I mean, Sainz didn't race. My podium was Max Perez, Sainz, and Sainz didn't race. We'll talk about that when we get to Ferrari, because that's the conversation that everyone wants to talk about. My last was Gasly, got that right, but I put Perez 10th. I put him in twice because I really don't want him to perform and do well, because I really want Danny Rick in that team. But, geez, if he keeps qualifying like he does, it's not looking too likely at the moment. Anyway, Freya, you had Max, Sainz, Perez, Tsunoda for 10th and K-Mag in last. Not too bad. I'll give you that. Bold prediction was 3 retirements.
I was only one short.
Spot on. Yeah. James, you had Max, Sainz, Hamilton. That failed miserably. K-Mag for 10th. Well, Hulk came 10th. Not too bad. Last was Ocon. Well, he may have well been last because, the French and those cars and his teammate. So pretty close, actually. I'll give the profit rating for this one. Yeah, good 60%, which is what most of them operate at anyway. Most of the time it's just made up.
Please let us inside your scoring system, Campy. Where the fuck did that come from?
Dark and scary place.
A profit rating of 60%.
Oh, too good.
Mate.
Oh, geez. That'll go in the Discord Campyisms, I think. This episode is brought to you by NordVPN, which is rolling out an offer that's too good to miss. Imagine securing 2 years of top-tier, secure internet access with a massive discount. But because they believe in giving a little extra, they're adding an additional 4 months absolutely free. And there's more on the menu for our friends in the USA, UK, Australia and Canada. With every purchase of a 2-year plan, you're in for a treat with an Uber Eats voucher. Enjoy some of the best meals which your city has to offer on NordVPN. And don't forget, you can use NordVPN to stream your favourite shows and sports, no matter where you are in the world. This is the VPN that we've been using for years, and we reckon you'll love using it too. So what are you waiting for? Dive into the feast of savings and delightful experiences. Sign up for NordVPN today and taste the difference with our exclusive offer. Make the smart choice, make the best choice. Join us now and let the good times roll securely and privately. Head to nordvpn.com/Lakeside Drive now, or use the link in our episode description. We now will go into our race and team by team analysis. We'll start off at the back. Now, let's talk about Stake, or whatever their name is, Kick Red Bull Racing. Disappointing. Sorry. Mate, do you know how much that has thrown me out?
It was bound to happen. No, Campy, this is not your fault. This is they had it coming by naming 2 teams of the most ridiculous things. People are just going to go, you're both idiots, put it together and make it one team. This is not your fault, Campy.
Yeah.
It's not even that team. It's not even Minardi. It's Sauber.
Can I just say, I like the colour on this team. I know you don't like it. I just think the way they've put it on the car looks horrendous. I think there's too much green on the front and back. It just looks like a big green machine. The Hulk's coming at you. I think they just could have made it, slightly more TV friendly when it's driving straight forward.
Can we put Hulkenberg in this car?
No, it's going to go Mercedes.
Hulk in the Hulk. That would be
all
great.
Right. Freya, take it away. Give us a heads up on their weekend. Look, not what they want. This team's going to be the new Williams of 2016. So,
yeah, the fact that we're talking about them already is not good. A good reflection as to how their weekend went. And to me, it's summarised by Joe watching his car being put together with duct tape during qualifying. So he came out with like 1.52 seconds to go in Q1, minutes to go, sorry, in Q1. And obviously went out and then just aborted completely. So it didn't start well for him, and it didn't seem to finish any better for Valtteri Bottas. Obviously, as James was saying earlier, this is just a very good, no good anywhere situation for their team, and the sooner they can get on to thinking about the future with what that looks like, the better. I think it's hard, right? Because obviously we love Bottas, and Joe seems like a really nice guy. He hasn't really done anything to offend any of us, which is actually a pretty hard task, to be honest. So, we've got no reason not to want to really support both of these drivers and the team generally speaking, but it is pretty hard going, and I think it will be very hard going for anybody who is a true diehard fan of either of these drivers, quite frankly, for at least the first half of the season, because it's hard to see them being able to keep up with the development race as well. So you've started on the back foot so significantly, and then that every other team is going to be bringing upgrades, and they're going to be significant upgrades. I just can't see this team keeping up with that, and so they're starting with such a significant way to go, and I don't think they can keep up with it. So look, there's not that much to say about these two at this point, only to say that it's going to be a pretty hard one.
Nothing to add, mate. Honestly, it is a car that development-wise they need to do significant things, and the most exciting thing they've got is Audi buying 100% of them, and to see what that brings for next year, honestly.
Yep. Well, next up is Alpine, and what could possibly go wrong? Qualifying was horrendous for them, 18th and 17th. So clearly their one-lap pace is nowhere. Clearly their race pace isn't much better anyway. We had Gasly, he had a problem on the outlap. I think he made 2 laps and then retired. Ocon did a bit better, albeit by that K-Mag train that happened. He finished 13th in the end. So not a bad result for them, but nowhere near the points, and I couldn't be happier about it, if I'm honest. James, take us away. Oh, seriously.
Yeah, I mean, Gasly had problems on the outlap, as you said, or the formation lap with his gearbox. He made the start. He did some revs, but sort of bouncing around the place you could see on the broadcast, and then retired the car pretty much immediately. I would say, though, the Ocon finishing in 13th, he did have some pace considering the mid-pack that he was, the back of the mid-pack that he was fighting with K-Mag, the 2 RBs and the 2 Williams, and he was in the mix with that, but it's clear that this car still doesn't have any good direction. The fact that they've already got reliability issues this early on is of real concern, I think. And I think realistically, where are they best placed? Probably 9th, probably maybe 10th. I mean, HAAS have already scored a point and they haven't, and they were on the bottom of the table last year. So it's very clear that the team needs to get itself together. Obviously, they've had a whole stack of significant retirements over the last couple of months. In fact, the head of Aero and whoever the design team that retired or resigned rather last weekend, they did that weeks ago, and most of the team found out because of the media. That is just, come on. As you said last week, Ryan Reynolds and this consortium, I think they will be very concerned about where their money has been invested.
Is it people jumping off a sinking ship, or is it, we haven't done our job properly, so let's make this not about us and more about the organisation? I look at it and I say this is people that have not been given the resources they want. They've lacked leadership. They've lacked direction. They have failed to execute on their plans and visions for the car, and they got to whenever they retired, or resigned, and they just said, we are out of here. There's no way this... That's before the car's even on track. Now, contractually, they probably had to do some things where they showed up for certain races and certain things, but this team is going to be in big strife for the rest of the year. I think Gasly and Ocon will both be very childish in the way that they talk about this team at times, because it's only going to get worse. They've got 0-1 lap pace and 0 race pace, and I just don't see where it goes from here anywhere but down, and it'll take a long time to climb back up that grid. It's incredibly hard to get performance on track and continually improve year on year to get up to the top, but geez, you can fall down a hell of a lot quicker. All right, Williams. Clearly the number one driver in this team is Albon. How do you think Sargent's year is going this year, Freya? He qualified pretty badly. Race pace wasn't too bad, but again, we're talking about that DRS train from K-Mag. So how'd you see the number one drivers this weekend for this team?
Yeah, look, I think it's hard for Sargent. When you look at what's going on at the back of the grid, like you said, you've got those, the Alpines and the stake cars. You're going to have these really interesting mid-pack battles, and then I think at the back they're just going to be following along behind, especially at a track like this. Like you said, you had that DRS train that kind of formed. Albon has just once again shown that either he is outperforming that car significantly, or Sargent is a really long way off what is actually the base level potential of this car. Do you know what I mean? It's when you've got the two drivers like this lined up side by side, you go, well, is Albon massively outperforming it, or is that the base of what this car can do? And Sargent is just so far off the level of performance of Albon that we don't really know. You know, you don't have two people, I don't think, that you can really line up against each other in terms of their performance. Albon was struggling with a few things this weekend. I think he's obviously benefited there from the late penalty that was given to Tsunoda, so he was promoted into 11th, still obviously no points for them. Sargent's got to do something pretty quickly and level up with Albon if he wants to keep his seat for next year, obviously with the performance of someone like Bearman this weekend. I think what that shows, I know we'll talk about Bearman specifically when we get to Ferrari, but what that shows when it comes to rookies as a whole, yes, they can be a big gamble, but there is also some very high potential drivers very ready to go. And when you've got someone like Sargent, who now is no longer a rookie, he's got to level up with his teammate. And he's got to do it pretty soon in order to get some consistent results and not have them be kind of seen as flukes or one-offs throughout the season. It needs to be consistent, and in order to achieve consistency, it's got to happen soon.
Yep. Red Bull, RB this weekend, Jim. I forgot them. I'm sorry, because they should have been second last, not last. They are qualifying for them. They have Danny Rick, if he wants to get into that top team, he has to qualify better than Tsunoda. And I think you're seeing the results about how Tsunoda's race played out this weekend. If you can jump up to the top of that mid-pack, it'll determine the outcome of your race massively. When gone are the areas where you can get 6 places off the start, unless there's an incident, it's just not going to happen. So Danny Rick's got to pull his finger out to get the job done. But, geez, it's been a tough watch again for the first couple of races for this team, Jim.
Yeah, it's hard being a Daniel fan, isn't it? Again, I didn't think we'd be here so soon. No. It's interesting because RB, the car design that they actually have for this weekend is what they wanted in Bahrain, but they sort of did some design updates through testing, but weren't able to get the parts in time to Bahrain. So the way that the car is and the way what they're trying to do with it, I don't think is still quite settled yet. Daniel was saying things like he wasn't sure about what's going on, and he hasn't sort of been using that language since McLaren, which is concerning. But I mean, if you think back to the last year, the end of last year, his performances in the AlphaTauri were fantastic. I mean, everyone's very quick to forget Mexico. Everyone's very quick to forget how he was able to come back from breaking his fucking hand to do this stuff. So yet again, I will die on this hill, and it was because I was revived on this hill again. So look, it's at this point, this is a car that they said through testing was not the RB19. I bet Daniel wishes it was the RB19 because he'd be doing a much better time with it. But let's also not forget that in terms of qualifying at the moment, this pack is separated by, hundreds of tenths of a second. It's not 5, 6, 7 seconds. So look, Australia is a completely different track. Bahrain, high tyre deg, and an interesting circuit. This is very high speed. We may not have found yet a track that suits Daniel and this car, or he may be the sacrificial lamb at the moment by doing all of the testing that needs to be done for this car to get the setup right. Maybe he's setting up for race pace rather than one lap pace. But the facts are the facts. Yuki has out-qualified him, but it's only twice. There's 22 more races to go. We're only starting the F1 calendar next weekend. We haven't even started yet. So don't worry about it.
The real start.
And do we know why he had a 51-second pit stop under the safety car when that came out? Because I saw that on the live timing and scoring, and I thought that may have played into his race. They didn't say that, and that might just be Daniel being, super positive. Because he was positive about the car when both him and Yuki were really positive about the direction that they took and the understanding that they'd had from this weekend. But I did wonder whether or not that there was a problem with the car, because he couldn't hold on to the Williams cars in front of him. He made up the gap in that whole DRS train, but he lacked some genuine pace as well on track. So I think he's probably managing an issue. Not that he needs to come out and say that, because we're his biggest fan and he will be in that top team and he will be winning races soon. So that's good. But if Checo keeps performing like he has been in the first two races also, it's going to make it tough, because if he comes second in every race, that's what they want him to do. So anyway, moving on. Who have we got up next?
HAAS.
We have HAAS. Points. Freya.
Pointer. Singular.
Hey.
Yeah, look, it obviously a very interesting weekend for them. Look, this is a track where you need that downforce to be working in your favour. I think it's actually quite a hard track to work together as a team in terms of things like using toes and everything else. But this team showed that when you understand how to work together here and you understand what the repercussions are based on obviously K-Mag's various penalties that were heading their way, they nailed that to a T when it comes to maximising what was actually kind of available remaining at the end for them. So I was very, very pleased to see the teamwork that they had. I think, like you said, K-Mag just did not seem to have a single shit to give when it came to this race. Whether or not, after he had that first 10-second penalty, squeezed Albon into the wall, and then another one for leaving the track and gaining that advantage on Tsunoda. I wonder sometimes after you get a 10-second penalty and you're a HAAS driver as opposed to somebody who's going further up the grid, you go, that's my race done. So let's just see what else we want to do from here. I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if there's an attitude there. But he gave us some great racing. So quite frankly, I was here for it.
Yeah, I was too. Look, that pass that he made on Tsunoda and going off track and had to give it back. I think Lewis and Max have both won world championships making passes like that and not leaving space.
Yeah.
I thought it was a tough decision to give that back. I mean, I don't even think all four wheels are off the track.
They were. Can I just say, though, they were.
Yeah.
Oscar did it twice on Lewis and gave the position back, so the precedent was already set. And also, this is the first time that this new penalty has been applied, by the way, Campy, because leaving the track and gaining an advantage last year was 5 seconds. All the drivers got really annoyed about that and said that there was the ability, especially for faster cars, to make that up. So now it's 10 seconds. That's the default thing. Hence why it was a 10. If he'd just given the position back, he would have been able to be fine. He only had 10 seconds rather than 20-second time penalty.
I don't like it.
What a surprise.
I don't like anything about the FIA and the governing body and the decisions they make.
Formula 1.
I like Vegas. No, I don't. What a disaster that is, and we have to go back there. Let's have an ad break.
I love a walking contradiction.
And welcome back. We were talking about the second half of the grid. The once great Mercedes, where are they at, Freya?
I don't know. That's a very good question. I'm not sure that they know either. To be honest, it's I think Russell did as well as he could. It's funny, they seem to be really positive when they're talking about their car, and yet they just are not able to be anywhere close to, obviously those who are ahead in terms of your Ferraris, your Red Bulls in particular, even Aston Martin's at this track specifically. Yeah. I think we will be very reflective at the end of this year when we look at how Hamilton has raced, and we will overanalyze that, and I look forward to it within an inch of its life, because as we talked about last week a little bit, he's just not quite as upset as he used to be when things aren't quite going his way, or he's not able to extract everything he wants out of the car. He's not complaining as much. I think that is probably because he just is obviously not emotionally attached to the development of this car really beyond this year. So it'll be interesting to see, what that means for his on-track driving. But what I'm really hoping for is more of what we saw from Russell this weekend when it comes to stepping up basically, and taking on, being the number one driver for Mercedes. James?
Yeah, I would. I mean, it's obvious. Why would Mercedes give Lewis any preferential treatment? I mean, he is leaving the team. George isn't. And I think that it has been interesting watching on track the way that George has got to grips with this car compared to Lewis. And again, facts. Yep, Yuki's faster than Daniel. The facts are that George is faster than Lewis at the moment. And I think that it will be interesting to see how that develops throughout the year, because I mean, also this is the start of the segment of the One Direction band, because we've had Norris and Bearman and Hamilton and Russell all together in their little UK sandwich of One Direction names on the screen. It was very cute of them all. But for Mercedes, I think that they're getting themselves sorted out very slowly, but they're still behind Ferrari. Didn't have any reliability issues this weekend, didn't have any cooling issues this weekend. So out of Bahrain, they fixed that stuff. But it's it's interesting.
The other thing with Hamilton, though, let's not forget this weekend, is that he was defensive driving for much of it because he had Oscar Piastri breathing down his neck. So as much as, it didn't look on paper as though he had formed quite as well as Russell, he was driving a very different race, and Piastri had pressure on him for a very long time. And we'll get to McLaren, but there was an exceptional tweet, I think, that came out from Piastri saying, I am both a couple of points up and now an expert in the Mercedes rear wing. So love that from you, Oscar.
Showing a bit of character. Well, next up we got Aston Martin. Geez, Stroll. Rookie mistake from him, but he makes those all the time, so I'm still not sure whether it's a rookie mistake or it's just what he does. But geez, Alonso, he drives the wheels off that car. He just he's one of these guys, and I think there's only probably 2 or 3 of them on the grid at the moment, and himself, Max, and arguably Lewis, that can do this. They can pull 2 or 3 tenths out of any car, any time, any track, any condition, anywhere in the world. And, geez, he drove the wheels off that car, particularly in qualifying. And then the race, we knew it had fallen away from him on the back end of it. But, geez, what a driver this guy is. I hope he gets some results. I hope we see him on the top step of the podium again. And I hope he sticks around till 2026 so that maybe he could make a jump to an organisation that could see him get another world championship, because he really is that good.
I actually reckon Stroll was a little bit unlucky with that crash. Many people, including him, got away with kissing the wall right there in both qualifying and practice. I think that was actually fairly unlucky. And I know it is a very fine line between kissing the wall and being in the wall, being one with the wall, as opposed to just being nearby. But I just think that was pretty unlucky. He got away with it himself during qualifying, and others did it as well. So I don't know. I'm first to judge, but I reckon that one was just it was a bit unlucky.
But you make your own luck in this sport. If you're Fernando Alonso, and you kiss the wall and those things don't happen. Stroll's the sort of driver that does kiss the wall and that happens. So Is it skill? Is it? I know they're on the limits of driving it, but Stroll just continually. Look, Aussie. Look, we know why that guy's in the team. What does the future for him look like in this sport, Jim?
No, there isn't.
And in this episode, Campy answers his own questions.
There is only one team he will ever drive for, and that's the one he's in, dude. There is nothing, any more pace, consistency, or care for the team, the mechanics who have to consistently put his car back together over anyone else. I mean, he does have pace. In the junior formulas, he was good. There is no denying that.
Yeah.
He put in great performances in Williams. He's put great performances in Racing Point. But consistency is not his thing, and it doesn't matter. When he does something like this, it doesn't matter. It doesn't impact his drive. But if, Yuki was doing this all the time, or if Checo was doing this all the time, or Albon or Sargent or whatever else, there would be significant consequences.
Sargent does do it all the time.
No, but not in the same way. I don't think he does it in the same way. Well, certainly not this year. He hasn't done it as much as Lance, which is, once out of 2 races. But this is his second year in the sport. Lance has been in this sport since when? 2016? Longer? I don't know. So,
yeah.
But I think Aston Martin are getting their race pace back together, Campy. I mean, Fernando joked in the media pen after qualifying with Lando, just like, the McLarens are so slow, like, good luck overtaking me. And then Oscar just sails past me like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about McLaren. Let's talk about McLaren and our boy Oscar. Jeez, he had a very professional-looking drive this weekend, and he performed really well. Loved that he beat his teammate, Lord Lando. Jeez, that guy's falling down the grid quicker than I can go down a water slide, probably. But there you go.
There is a visual that I didn't need. Is Campy in a beanie on a water slide.
So full of shit, and I'm never hosting it again. Freya talks about McLaren.
This is going well.
Oh, wow. After that, water slides, I don't know where to go. Piastri, yeah, like you said, off the start, phenomenal start, getting ahead of Alonso so early. And then he nearly bloody got Leclerc off the restart as well, which, nearly had that. I did have my head in my hands when he had that skirmish in the corner towards the end there, I think it was. But to see him being able to qualify where he did and then navigate the race, and he did. I know it was a bit different in that Norris didn't pit under the safety car, so he was obviously going to be on a very different strategy from Piastri after that point. But he was an absolute professional this weekend. We'll see his first podium in a Grand Prix race very, very soon. James, tell us about why Norris wasn't penalised for his jump start, and also preferably why it took 12 laps for them to note it.
Yeah, that was bizarre, wasn't it? Because something else got noted first before his jump start, which I think the clash between Albon and someone. I don't quite understand this, because it purely comes down to whether or not the sensor, the FIA approved and embedded sensor on the car, was triggered for a jump start, and it wasn't. Apparently we can't use our eyes. We're not allowed to use our eyes. Our eyes do not exist in this instance, and it is purely a trick of the imagination. That being said, I mean, he didn't jump the start, did he? Okay, he moved forward and then he stopped, and as a result of that, he then bogged down. So that in itself, I think, was enough of a penalty. When asked what happened, he was like, I don't know. And fair enough, because, I mean, they were held an exceptionally long time. It's probably the longest hold at a set of lights that I've seen for quite some time. And so, there will be an element of them anticipating within a tenth or something to be able to do it. But, yeah, look, I think it's interesting. I mean, McLaren have found some more pace, but Oscar said, there's clearly design directions that the car needs to sort out back there. But overall, I mean, clearly there's some confidence in the car. He had what he described as a messy time in Bahrain, and then he didn't have that much confidence coming in here. And post-qualifying, both Lando and Oscar were like, not sure where we can go. But to qualify fifth and to finish best of the rest outside of the podium, I think, is just such a bloody fantastic thing. And the fact that it's Australia in a fortnight and then Japan a fortnight after that, there's time for development. It's time to understand everything, simulations, all of that kind of jazz. So maybe Karun Chandok asked him this, and maybe there's an opportunity to see him on the podium there. Then Karun was like, "Oh, sorry, I also forgot Daniel was here, but for Aussie, I mean you." On the podium, it's like, "Come on, Karun, cut me deep."
Yeah, I don't think the rear wing's the biggest thing to change on a car. They interchange these components all year depending on tracks and stuff, and hopefully it's a pretty simple fix for them, because it was hard to watch him. He was clearly faster than Hamilton, but just didn't have the pace on the straights in order to do it. I think they brought up the track dominance map, and Oscar was beating him right around the track. It was just a couple of those the low speed corners in which Hamilton was getting further up the track than what Oscar was in order to keep that gap and distance. So, look, I think that fight between McLaren and Mercedes this year, both Mercedes engines in that car, is going to be very interesting. It's not going to be a good look for Mercedes as an F1 team to have a customer car beating them, albeit McLaren's got massive history in this sport, but it'll be a good fight. I think they're pretty close, relatively speaking.
That battle between Piastri and Hamilton felt like a harder and faster version of what was going on with Bearman and Hulkenberg. Yeah, well, it was just one of those things where, like you said, the car in front of you sometimes is actually slower, but it doesn't necessarily make it easier to overtake super quickly. You have to be so patient, whether it's figuring out your recharge and how to use that most efficiently and effectively, different corner opportunities based on the strengths of your car. So even when you're in better machinery, you still have to be so patient. It's not as straightforward as it seems. And it just felt like at this track in particular, it's one that really exposes cars' strengths and weaknesses. But that battle between Piastri and Hamilton just felt like a harder and faster version of what was going on up the back. So it was just an interesting one for me, I think, because sometimes you just go, oh, why can't you just get in front? Because your lap times are faster. So why isn't it happening? And it was actually just a pretty good example of it's just not as straightforward as it looks sometimes.
Yeah, and look, this race about lap 20 in, I thought, geez, this race is going to be a bit of a procession. It's going to get boring. But what the TV directors got right this week was showing that backfield battle and so much of that that Oscar Hamilton battle. And I really enjoyed the race to watch. I think it was great. Those man machine and a racetrack when it's just two cars or a few more at the back. It is still an amazing thing to watch. I really like those shots overhead, over the water, zooming in on the cars. I think it's a great spectacle of a track, and it was really good racing, although not as much happened in the race. It was still an exciting race, and as a fan, that's what I want to see, good racing. And I think we figured out how cars can follow for multiple laps without burning out tyres now, which is good for the sport. All right, the biggest story of the weekend: Carlos Sainz, appendicitis, and Ferrari. Ollie Bearman making his debut, and take it away, Jim. Tell us what you think. Great story. I think Ollie performed very well, all things considered. Has he even driven this car yet?
Well, not the Ferrari, no. He had a FP1 session at HAAS in Mexico.
Yep, that's right.
A few other tracks last year. Abu Dhabi, I think, in Mexico, maybe the only two outings in a Formula One car, and it was a piece of shit, let's be fair, not even a good one. So he had done everything F2-wise, qualified on pole, ready for Friday, and he would have probably known in the back of his mind, I am the Ferrari reserve driver this weekend, Carlos is sick, but you just never know what's going on. The same way Liam Lawson, in the Netherlands last year would have been like, maybe, but I don't want to get myself hyped up. And as he said to Sky F1, I woke up and I was totally focused on F2, and then I went into F3, and then suddenly I qualify. I'm in qualifying. It was Sky and all of the British media were bloody fawning all over this bloke, but fair enough, to be honest, which is sad to say from the Australian point of view. He did an incredible job. There is just no doubt he did an incredible job. He got up to speed quickly. to be able to go from F2 mentality on this circuit to F1 mentality with one practice session with no representative running in the nighttime. So that's, missing FP2 is pretty significant going straight into qualifying because conditions are completely different. It's not representative at all. I think he did well to miss out on, I think, 36 hundredths or 36 thousandths, I think, of a second on reaching Q3 was fantastic. So big ups to this bloke. Nick de Vries came in and got a seat in Formula One as a result of doing that. Liam Lawson should have got a seat this year, certainly, and hopefully his time will come too. But there is now no doubt that HAAS will be taking, in my mind, and in many other minds, much bigger Formula One minds than I have, there's no doubt in their minds that HAAS will take him next year. So that is a very interesting thing too. From what I understand, it will be Kevin who goes, which I think is considering this weekend's performance, like, oh, okay. But anyway, the driver market now is more confused than what it was even a week ago because suddenly Ollie Bearman is in the mix. What I think is really interesting is his second F2 season, comes into a fast car, of course, gets to perform and everyone sees him. But you look at the other F2 winners from the last couple of years and they don't get a look in. So it is absolutely right place, right time in this scenario. And the last thing I'll say about this is I am a big fan of Ollie Bearman's dad, who... When asked, by Lazenby on the Friday night, what's the expectations? There's no expectations. I just want him to have fun. And the way that he was standing in qualifying by himself in that Ferrari garage, and he could have been standing anywhere. Like it didn't matter to him. He was totally engrossed on how his son was doing. To see the Ferrari CEO standing next to him for the entire race and saying well done and all that sort of stuff. I mean, this is good. This is good news for Ollie because it just means he is coming to Formula One next year, as he should, because for my mind, it was an incredible performance in a car that, is quick. So if he'd come in the HAAS and not perform, got a point too, I still would have thought maybe done so well. But the fact that it's Ferrari, the fact that it's a debut Ferrari for the first time since 73, the first Englishman since Nigel Mansell to drive Ferrari. I mean, there's heaps of firsts, so good for him. Freya, what did you think?
There is an exceptional selfie of David Bearman on my phone, which he took on my phone. So if you go to my Instagram, they were both, I met them both at Silverstone. Actually, it's super, super lovely. And David actually took a photo of Ollie and I, and of course he did the classic, took a million selfies along the way.
That's
so
funny.
go to my Instagram and you'll see that. They're super, super lovely. I'm going to answer a question that came to us via the Discord, which was about Ollie Bearman suddenly stepping up, and I suppose from a mindset perspective, what that takes or what you might be doing in that moment. And obviously I'm going to give my usual disclaimer, which is that you can never provide any kind of specific comments about any one individual. This is very general thoughts around electing any individual. Obviously, I have no idea what he did or didn't do. But speaking very generally about quick changing conditions in sport. So things like your rival suddenly shows up and you didn't think they were going to be competing that weekend, or the weather isn't what you expected, or the car isn't behaving the way you thought it would, or you're a reserve and you have suddenly been called to compete. I've been that reserve at the Australian Rowing Nationals when I was 16. I was reserve for schoolgirls quad and got called up. And I wish I knew then what I know now about exactly what I'm about to say. And here's the thing with sport, any high performance situation, you'll never be able to compete at the highest levels, let alone come out on top of those, unless you are able to manage a great deal of uncertainty, which equates to uncomfortable situations. And this is obviously particularly applicable to motorsport because there's so many variables, like there's so much that is outside of your control. So every weekend is kind of like this. As opposed to having that one-off weekend, which feels unusual, every weekend there's so many variables and things that you just don't know what's going to happen. So let's say you are a reserve, you've been called up and your brain starts going, oh my God, what? What's happened? What's going on? Why? Obviously it wants information, it's surprised, and then it all starts to sink in. And while you might be lucky enough to have some thoughts like, this is my chance, this is my F1 debut, it's going to be Ferrari, that's incredible, this is going to be amazing, I can't wait. The way our brains tend to work, and the darling things that they are, they're just trying to protect us when they do this to us. But they're also likely to say things to you like, I'm not ready for this, I won't be able to keep up. What if I crash? I'll be such a disappointment. I don't want to let people down. This is one of the hardest tracks on the calendar. Not allowing yourself to get hooked by those thoughts and dragged into behavior dictated by a stress response is absolutely key to managing uncertainty. And that's exactly what this situation was. So when your mind is telling you a story like, if you get this wrong, you'll never drive in Formula One again, one thing you can do in that moment is to become super, super present. I know that sounds really like, what does that mean? You notice that thought, you name it, and then you course correct in terms of what's going on in your mind and your body, getting into your body. Where am I feeling this stress? Maybe you've clenched your hands. Maybe your jaw is clenching suddenly. Maybe your chest feels tight and your shoulders are kind of creeping up towards your ears. Release your jaw, release the hands, focus on your breathing, drop the shoulders. Because in your mind, when it comes to sport, it's about detaching from that story of what happened, what might happen here, and allowing a new focus to come in. Now, in sport, in the moment, it's often about focusing on the process rather than the outcome. So like I said, the easy story here is, what if I fuck up and I never get to drive in Formula One again? That's a very outcome-focused issue and story. So you want to go into the process. So what are the 3 things I need to focus on during this race? Maybe it's getting your battery management right. Maybe it's getting your braking zone spot on. Maybe it's, just getting your engine modes right, or nailing that one corner that I know is more difficult than the rest. Because these are all things that are process-based and things that are inside of your control. But don't create a laundry list, because that's too much to focus on. The thing is that if you allow yourself to get hooked by those what if stories or potential outcomes, your stress is officially now in the cockpit and you are not performing at your best. Genuinely, one of the biggest benefits of this situation from Ollie Bearman was the lack of time that he had to overthink it. So there's not much time there to let your brain get in and try and ruminate, but it will still try. But that's it. It's not letting yourself get hooked by those stories. And the way to do that is to go, I can see what you're doing here. I'm going to get into my body, take back control, and keep my focus on the process rather than the outcome. And like James said, we saw some great quotes from Ollie's dad, David, but then also from Fred Vasseur, who said lap time is not what is important here. It's understanding the processes, outlaps, the steering wheel, engine modes. Yeah. They didn't even get to do a pit stop in practice. It would be a massive mistake to put pressure on his performance. And so not only did he kind of handle the situation well, but the people around him did a great job of that as well.
I still would have been a sleepless night the night before, Yeah. It doesn't matter how much time you prep. It's not like, you've got 4 hours and you're racing a Grand Prix. You've still got to go to bed and get some rest and sleep. And I can imagine that he was excited as anything. And it was good to see. I was impressed. And sometimes we have an opinion or a view of F2 drivers that they're not quite there, but they are very competent, very skilled drivers in the way they go about their craft. And that jump, we've seen guys take their chances on debut being called up like your Lawsons and your De Vrieses last year, and now Ollie Bearman, and they've performed at a very high level, from on the first weekend and done well. So, it'll be good to see a few more F2 drivers get up. I think there's a few drivers on the grid that we could kick out and get some new ones in and new personalities. And,
here we go.
I'm for it. Anyway, Red Bull, quickly. Jim?
Yep. Congratulations on winning the World Championship, Max. You've done very well. Sergio was a lot closer to Max this weekend. He drove very, very well. Even with his penalty that he got for an unsafe release into Fernando Alonso after Lance caused that whole situation. But, good on-track performance for the team. It's exactly what they needed, a solid 1-2, considering all the off-track nonsense that was going on. But this car, as an aggressive evolution, as Christian keeps calling it, is an aggressive, successful evolution so far. It'll be interesting to see how it does on tracks like Albert Park.
I just think I can't see Max losing this year. He was managing yesterday too.
No.
I think before that safety car, he had already had 10-second lead or whatever it was, and then by lap 34 or by whatever, mid-20s, after 14 laps, he'd had an 8-second lead on Supercar when he needs to against his teammate. But, geez, we're in for possibly another long year. Moving on. All right, driver of the day. Mine is going to K-Mag. Freya.
So my actual driver of the day vote did genuinely go to K-Mag. I am going to go Albon.
Interesting. James?
My driver of the day is Oscar, because the way that he put pressure on Lewis for ages and was finally able to get it, but he's still a professional on track, not doing the K-Mag thing of going, I've got the place now, bugger it, I'll build a 10-second gap ahead of me, giving the place back, waiting for Lewis to come through. I think it was great driving, and we're seeing maturity now in terms of his understanding of tyre management, which he said he wanted to work on from last year.
Yep. Great call.
You?
I think he's me. I said
K-Mag. What was your driver of the day? You K-Mag.
I think Oscar's going to get a podium in Australia, Australian podium in Melbourne. Jeez, it's going to be exciting. It's probably got his first point last year, so it's exciting. All right, Fantasy League. I'm finally in it. I had to find it so that I could find some team names last night, so you shafted me in there, Jad. So I found 3 which I liked. Sergeant That Harms, very good. Your mum's your dad, that was just the greatest insult of all time. Back to the schoolyard bullying, saw that. And My Heart Will Grow John is still in there, so I'll put that in number 3 because it's an oldie, but it's very much a goodie. So our rankings this weekend, James was 17th, Freya, you were 74th, which is
I forgot to sub out Sainz, and I had Daniel Ricciardo. So it was but not subbing out Sainz completely screwed me.
Well, as I said, I'm in it now, so I'm.
How many teams have we got? Can you see how many teams are in there? Like 77 or something, which means Freya's right down the bottom.
So
you're now 78th. Good.
My goal for this year is to get Freya. So.
Fair enough. I mean, that's probably the only thing that's in reach.
Everyone, I don't like the 2 constructors. That just throws out your budget. It kills me. And if you put Max in your team, it's all over.
Well, that's the point. I mean, they've had to really tighten that up from last year where everyone was doing Aston Martin, Red Bull, Max, Alonso, Stroll. It's a lot tougher to do it, which, to be honest, is good. It's better that it's tougher. It makes you actually think about it.
It is. All right. So our top 3 for this weekend. Yeah, go.
Sorry, can I just, in lieu of you finding more funny names, can I just shout out to the Discord server that is currently in the F1 race weekend tab? They're talking about milk bars and what a milk bar is, and that's been going on for the last hour. And so I've been sitting here whilst recording this and being harangued by people for not recording this earlier, by the way. As I said in the Discord, it's a long weekend. We're having the sleep in. It's hilarious. People who have no idea what a milk bar is. If you want to know what a milk bar is, you live overseas, go to the Discord because it's very funny. Sorry, Campy.
Just go check out the Milky Bar kid. Was it Milky Bar or Milky Way kid? It was like dressed up as a cowboy.
Yeah, Milky Bar. Milky Bar kid.
Jeez. Get with it, Americans.
Our Discord is a special place.
It is a special place.
Totally.
All right, top 3 for this weekend was Marcos Helmet, David W, 276. Ashley W, she was 2nd, and Damien P, FF, so Daniel don't crash in 3rd. So very looking good. Top of the table's tight. I won't be there this year, unfortunately, but I did. I made my debut
You could, though. This is only Saudi specific. So if you score at the end of the year, we'll go through who's got the most points. But this is race specific. So even if you haven't joined yet, you can join now. Put a team ahead of Australia, and you can get mentioned if your team comes on the podium.
Love that. Well, just to wrap up this week, with 2 weeks' time, we have the Melbourne Grand Prix. So we will be around. Look up for the Discord to have a chat. James will not also be, doing podcasting and the race stuff. He will also be commentating sidetrack for the Porsche Cup and the classics.
Oh, dear.
I
enjoyed watching people harangue Karun for being shit at commentary. I was like, that's my future.
Just quietly sitting there going, uh-oh. I can just see that picture of James being like, I'm in danger.
Yeah, that's right. I am Ralph Wiggum. And not just commentary, lead commentary too. Anyway, shout out to Bailey Hall, who races in the Porsches. I spent 40 minutes on the phone to him this week asking him everything about the series, trying to get my head around it. But I'm bloody excited for Australia. F3, F2, F1, Porsches, V8 supercars, historics. It's going to be madness, actually.
Freya will also be in the country, which is good too. So we'll be live. I think we should live tweet at hashtag James Baldwin, best commentator ever.
Okay. Oh my God. This is going to be great. Campy, this is our opportunity because James is going to be too busy to take note of anything. So I think we should just take over. Let's take over Instagram, Discord, fucking Twitter. We'll figure out what TikTok is, and we're gonna bombard it with the most outrageous content. And then there may never be another podcast, but we will have had a fantastic weekend.
Yeah, let's do it. So we will be in Melbourne. Look forward to those. Come and say hi to us at the track if you see us. I'll be in the Porsche hospitality tent, so probably not. But looking forward to it. Please check out our Fantasy League. Links are all active in there. Our Discord, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and like and subscribe and leave a review and comment on YouTube, all those places. So, thank you very much, and we will see you next time.